We're here today in Sandy Hook. Hi, I'm Mark Skirman. Beyond that body of water lies the New Jersey Atlantic Islands.
Hi, I'm Mark Moran. If it weren't such an overcast day, you'd be able to see the Manhattan skyline just a few short miles across New York Harbor. And immediately behind us is a guided nuclear missile.
1950s America was a golden age of suburban growth and prosperity. But it was also a time when global Armageddon was just a push of a button away.
This would be what would happen if an enemy were to unleash the terrible heat and destruction of nuclear war.
The Cold War was just beginning, and a very unusual plan was devised to help protect us Americans from a nuclear attack.
Nike Hercules would help turn the shadow of dread which hangs over us all into a shield that will protect us all.
In the early 1950s, the Army began building nearly 300 Nike sites. Bases across 29 states from Alaska to Florida were ready to take out any incoming nuke-carrying Ruski. By 1955, defensive rings of nuclear warheads protected cities like Washington, New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Seattle.
Today, this neighborhood is an abandoned ghost town, but back in the 1950s, it was just like any other, except the residents here had their finger on the nuclear trigger. Unknown to many Americans, just over their backyard picket fences were small communities stocked with nuclear missiles.
As children ran around this playground, their fathers were less than 100 yards away in bunkers, ready to launch a missile at a moment's notice.
The defense system was called Nike, after the winged goddess of victory. After World War II, the U.S. Army began building bases that formed a protective circle around major cities with the nation's first operational guided surface-to-air missile program.
Cold War expert Don Bender met us on the Jersey Shore to talk to us about this little-known piece of weird U.S. history. So Don, tell us exactly what the military used these huge rockets for.
Well, Nike missiles were designed to shoot down airplanes. Nike was a major nationwide air defense program during the Cold War. The bases were located in suburbs, towns, cities all around the New York metro area from 1954 through 1974, where they served as a last line of defense against a possible Soviet bomber attack.
Can you give us a better idea on the map of where we are in relation to the greater New York metropolitan area?
Sure, Mark. Well, we're here on the Sandy Hook Peninsula, and we're just about 25 miles south of Midtown Manhattan.
So if these bases were located 25 miles outside of Manhattan, you're talking about a very populated suburban area, right?
That's right. The bases were located in very populated areas and sometimes right about in people's backyards.
Nike bases were armed with the first generation of surface-to-air missiles, and in 1958 were carrying the latest innovations in military defense.
They contain a small new atomic device which can safely defend us against fleets of high-flying bombers carrying atomic weapons.
Would you like fries with that? Would you like to be fried with that?
Nike Hercules missiles were designed to take down an entire squadron of Soviet bombers and carried a nuclear payload double the destructive power dropped on Hiroshima.
Was the Army brass concerned about exploding nukes in the skies above American cities? Well, since Nike was the last resort for total world Armageddon, better to take out a Soviet bomber miles above than let it drop thermonuclear destruction on the ground.
At the peak of the Nike program, there were 300 bases throughout the United States. New York City had 19 bases protecting it, and each base consisted of two areas, the launcher area and the control area.
Don took us back in time to check out the control center of the Sandy Hook Nike base.
The soldiers in the trailers were preparing not for a skirmish, but for a battle for survival. Men who had come here for their baptism of fire, the test of their ability to operate Nike Hercules.
I feel like I'm in 1960.
Isn't this great? Well, this is the battery control trailer, and this is what has all the radar scopes and controls for firing missiles. Wow. Look at this.
Battle stations. The searching radar swept the skies for the unseen target.
Let's start this baby up.
On deck.
This is the acquisition radar scope, and this is where the battery commander sat. And right on this side over here are the controls for firing missiles. So you'd actually see the incoming aircraft here
Challenge target.
to determine if it was a friendly or hostile aircraft.
Target foe.
And you could also designate it as the target to be tracked here.
About to fire.
The battery commander made the decision to fire the missile.
Fire.
As the missile flies, the computer guides it.
And you could follow the progress of both the missile and the incoming aircraft on the radar screens, and also there are plotting boards in front of us here that showed the respective positions of the aircraft and missile, and would come closer and closer together, and you'd see the two converging.
Across America during the 1950s and 60s, the Army's Nike defense program meant nuclear missiles were protecting cities and towns, and they may lay just beyond your picket fence.
We've just seen where these missiles were monitored from. Now we're going to go see where they were fired from. Our next stop is Long Island for a tour of the other half of the missile base, the launcher area.
The men journeyed a few miles away across terrain upon which had been written many a chapter in the history of the United States.
Here it is, Rocky Point, Long Island.
Today, this facility in Rocky Point is abandoned. But 40 years ago, it played a key role in New York's protective Nike defensive circle.
The parts of each missile would come to them almost ready to fly. They would simply put them together in an assembly area and then store them in underground launchers.
So what's this big thing, Don?
Well, this is the magazine hatch. These two big doors here would drop down and lie flush with the edge of the magazine.
They're not going to drop down with us on them, are
I hope not. And then the missile would come up on this missile elevator, be brought up to the surface of the site.
Now Nike Hercules was ready to engage a remote enemy.
It was through these doors
Okay, in you go.
and down 25 steep steps into the ground where dozens of nukes once lay waiting to be launched. But what was once an underground storage for nuclear missiles is now a dank, dark basement.
Wow, look at this place.
Oh, man.
This is quite a big
Isn't that
open
great?
place, huh?
It's big, but of course in the past when the place was operational, you would have had this filled with missiles.
And this is the elevator, huh?
That's the missile elevator.
Wow.
Missiles would be pushed across from the racks onto this elevator and then brought up to the surface of the site.
And they were lifted up to this, where we were standing up above, right?
That's right. Those are the two doors we were standing on before.
Oh, it looks like a couple of quarts of WD-40. You could
I think it could
open that again, right?
Yeah.
When the warning lights would switch to green, the missile would be ready to fire.
Not the red button!
This is what it would be like if on some awful day the enemy attacked in earnest.
With a nuclear attack on the minds of everyone throughout suburbia, a new phrase began to appear in the American lexicon.
And all across the nation, school kids were told. Did the kids scrambling underneath their school tables realize the nukes were right behind the football field? We traveled to a school next to the Rocky Point base to find out. Hi, Glenn. I'm Mark Skirman.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
We stopped here today because we noticed the proximity of the goalposts over there into where we just came from, which is the old Nike missile base.
Do these people realize that there was a Nike missile installation, a nuclear facility just over the hill there?
Most people do not. They're unaware of what actually is over there.
You mean they don't do any duck and cover drills anymore?
Not anymore. Not anymore.
That's funny you mention that because you're of an age, and I am too, where we used to go through those drills, but we were actually all part of that Cold War. It was going on all around us, and it was just beyond that football field.
Thankfully, Dr. Strangelove's scenarios didn't happen, and Soviet bombers were never seen above our cities. The nuclear threat didn't disappear, however, because by the 1960s, the Soviets and Americans had developed intercontinental ballistic missiles, ending the need for long-range bombers to carry nukes to the U.S., but still packing an atomic punch.
The Nike missile program and these deserted nuclear bases may now just be a forgotten piece of history. But it's possible right behind your backyard fence, nuclear war was just a field goal away.
Remember what to do, friends. What are you supposed to do when you see the flash?